Hello and welcome. My name is Kathleen Miner, founder of Hopefull Handbags, global nonprofit, and I am here today with Orla Kelly, who is the founder of Orla Kelly Publishing and has also done a chapter in our book, besides all of the other amazing things she's doing with it, like putting it together, called Handbags. So welcome, Orla.
Thank you, Kathleen, for having me on your show.
Oh, this is so great. I loved reading your story. It was, for me personally, it was inspiring, but also I could relate to bits and pieces of it. I was a stay-at-home mom for over 20 years, 4 kids. I mean, just the mind space that you're in, that you think you're doing everything. So I really want to dig in and find out how you got to where you are today. So what was the turning point in your life that made you realize that you needed to change your path?
Sometimes there's always, that phrase, the straw that breaks the camel's back. And
Yeah.
it often isn't a really profound thing. It can be something small, but it was just enough to turn the dial, and then it changes everything. And I think at that time I was working as an environmental consultant. As I say, I'm a publisher now, so it just shows you us as humans can reinvent ourselves anytime we want. So I got a phone call from my son's creche. He was 23 months old, and it changed everything. I went down to reception carrying files in my hands, and there was another female member of staff standing nearby. And anyway, I answered the call in reception from the creche to say my son had taken ill. Could I come and collect him? And a snide comment passed by another female to the words to the effect, "Isn't it great for some to be able to swan off without a care in the world, without a moment's notice, and just leave?" And I just remember at that time thinking, oh wow, my firstborn son, my only child, and I was getting this phone call. Obviously, you have to collect with her, but for somebody else to say that to me. And anyway, I said to myself, but little did I know that that sickness was something that wasn't just a normal sickness. That sickness was to eventually, I discovered, manifest itself that he had TB that he caught from a creche worker. And he unfortunately was extremely sick, which at one stage was looking like parts of his lungs were going to have to get cut out from the front of his body, sent to a specialist hospital long distance from me. But he was very, very ill after it. And again, that comment made me realize every time I get a phone call, am I going to be facing snide comments, potential ridicule, feeling as if I was scathing? And I just said to myself, no, I'm too long doing this. I need to control, one, not only the narrative, but two, how I live my life and how I spend my time going forward. That was to be the catalyst to change everything for me, Kathleen.
So you started to think that you had to change something. And then what came into your life that made you make that shift finally? Just tell us a little tidbit of kind of
there was lots of medical appointments. He was very sick, and one day I had changed jobs. I had moved to a different company at that stage. I was pregnant with my daughter. My son had now been diagnosed with TB. He was on 3 medications every morning, and I was working just 3 half days a week in a different consultancy. And there was one morning I was after getting his meds into him, and I was arriving just at the childcare. He was with just a childcare, not a creche. And I turned around and I was just after pulling up outside, and I looked behind, and he had gotten sick and all the meds had come back up. So I was almost like multicolored from all the medicines. I remember, with heavily pregnant, reaching over to him thinking, I can't do this anymore. Who am I trying to fool? I think as women, we have fought for so long for independence, for our rights, everything. And I just suddenly said, who am I doing this for? What am I trying to prove? I was exhausted. I was worn out. I was already stressed. And I just said, to give yourself the gift and the time to breathe and to just enjoy these last moments of pregnancy and just, live life in the slow lane for a while and see what happens. I had no clue because money, we weren't that wealthy that we could really afford either for me to give up. But at the same time, had to say to myself, I can't do this anymore. And I just kept coming over my head. I can't do this. So that was my change. I just stopped.
So tell us then just a little bit through how did you start down this path of publishing?
Yeah, do you know what? I found it was almost like cold turkey, suddenly going away from a career, and my daughter was born, and then just being a stay-at-home mother was a big change for me. It was quite lonely because I live in Ireland, the weather's not great here, so there's lots of rain
I've heard.
overcast skies. Yeah, so you don't often get to see many people because it's wet. So it was quite isolating at home for a while, but the brain started to adapt, and I found all the technical analytical part of my brain that was very active when I was working. That doesn't work with kids because kids want mom who will sit on the floor, do jigsaws, tell story, play creative, imaginative games. So I found my brain adapting to a more relaxed, less stressed pace of life. Now, being a straight-home mother is stressful, but it was a different way of living. And I found my storytelling started to develop, my imagination skills, all thanks to my children. And really, one day my son then started to write a little story for his sister, and it was time for bed. And he said, Mom, will you finish it if I go to bed? And any frazzled mother, exhausted at the end of the day, will promise anything. Yeah, just go to bed.
Exactly. Of course I will.
Do it. Yeah. And then I sat down and I went, oh my gosh, what did I just commit to? Because what he wrote was so beautiful. And I suddenly felt so overwhelmed because I felt, how can I step into this wonderful universe that belongs to the child's imagination? But I just almost like took silent prayer and just breathed, and I just stepped into myself. And as I did, this wonderful world started to just come alive. And as I was writing, my brain was ticking over, and I couldn't write as fast as the story was evolving. And so the next day he said, Mom, did you finish my story? And I said, I did, but it's not finished. And every night I would read them more and more till my young daughter, who was 7, said, Mom, will you print it out for us? And in a light bulb moment, I said, I'll do one better. I'm going to teach myself how to publish it. And I don't know where that came from, but I had suddenly put it out there, and she squealed with delight, jumped up and down on the bed. And I suddenly had set myself another challenge. And that's how it started.
Right. And I love that, because you're absolutely right. When you get yourself in a different mind space, right? Because I think when I've been a working mom with kids, and I've been a stay-at-home mom with kids, and it's a different mind space that you're in when you're dealing with other people other than your own children, right?
Mm.
Because you're in, not that you're not involved with the people that you're working with, but it's not as emotional of an attachment. So you have that perspective that you did, which allowed you to think outside the box. You got it almost, it sounds like, to the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm in this world, my imagination. Did you have an imagination as a child? Like, did you like to tell stories? Did you dream of certain things?
No, never. It's so strange. I would read books when I was a child, but I wouldn't be very bookish at the same time. I think growing up in Ireland, we had so much freedom as children. There was no locked doors. You could go in and out of people's houses. You could disappear all day and no one would worry about you.
Right.
Looking back, we did some crazy things as children, but we were safe. So no, I was playing things like hopscotch. We were doing all innocent games, cycling a lot, dressing up. I mean, we'd really innocent games. But so I don't think I had an extraordinary childhood or anything that catapulted me, except my children. They were the inspiration behind everything.
I love that, because you're speaking to my heart, because it's so true that you don't know what you don't know. And when you're in that, you're just like, oh my gosh, I see what other people were talking about all those years. My mom was right. No, that's kind of the things I start thinking. But okay, so you went through moments, like you said, you felt overwhelmed. How'd you get through that? Because were there times when you felt unqualified? Because you came from a corporate world where you were totally qualified to do a qualified, whatever, that meant for that particular job, to do it. We don't take a test, or we're not qualified by a piece of paper to be a parent or a mom. But how did you get into this with the new path? Because you just came from something that you felt like you were qualified for. Did you ever feel overwhelmed and not qualified?
Yes, and I remember I wasn't working at the time, and I just happened to test the waters, and I went to a networking event, and I felt like such a wallflower there. There are all these power dressers. I felt insecure, uncomfortable, I felt like I didn't belong. And because I've been a stay-at-home mother for a number of years, I didn't know what the normal conversation was. And it's only when somebody tried to include me in conversation, I happened to just tell them that, I wrote my children's books, and I taught myself how to publish them. And I suddenly found that they found this really interesting. And I first thought they were trying to just feel sorry for me, but they were genuinely interested. And one person who worked in PR said, that's actually a skill in itself, one, being able to write, but two, teaching yourself how to publish. And I went, yeah, I taught myself how to publish it, format the book, design it, cover the works. And that same person told me that there was an entrepreneur program closing the next morning. This was 9 o'clock at night. Get your application in. You never know where that will take you. So I went home, and I actually literally prepared an application and got it in. And long story short, I got called for an interview. I was very unpolished at the interview, and I'd say I got through by the skin of my teeth, to then like a Dragon's Den Shark Tank style panel. Again, got through, and I was then in an entrepreneur program for 6 months, which taught me how to set up my own business, totally different from environmental consultancy, where I worked as a consultant. And then Orla Kelly Publishing was born in 2014.
Wow. Well, I mean, what a different 360 from where you were before that.
Totally. And yeah, like, to be honest, even up to recently, Kathleen, there were times that I would think, ooh, things are changing so much in the publishing world. There are times I still feel I'm not qualified enough, but that's good, because it keeps me on my toes. It stops complacency. It means that I'm more relatable as well, because if I don't know something, I will find out, or I'm honest about it. And I think people, they want to work with someone they know they can trust, who has their back, and is still learning. And everything I learn, I apply, and I help others. And I just think I never want to lose that sense that there's always more I need to work on.
I read something years ago, can't even remember where it was from, and it just said, if you want to live a long life, always be curious.
Yes.
And which means we're learning every day. We never know it all. I don't care how qualified somebody is or what kind of degrees they have. We're learning, and that's what we have to do. We have to keep learning. So I love that attitude, because really, once we're done learning, we're probably done, like, with everything. Like, we have to learn. So I love that you do that, because that's a good thing to reach out and tell other people, because I think a lot of people do feel like they're not qualified for something. What does that even mean anymore?
Yeah.
I mean,
and sadly, Kathleen, yourself, a lot of women put themselves down and don't put themselves forward for that exact reason.
Right.
Whereas I do find men are a lot more assertive. They will push themselves forward, even if they're less qualified than a female. And it's so sad to see.
Well, it is when you keep hanging around with people like you and me and the communities that I'm hanging around with and yours, and you won't be like that anymore, because the women that I'm seeing are just like, you know what? Like you said, if I don't know the answer, I'll find out. Yes. There's a will, there's a way, and that's what you're doing. So what advice would you give somebody that wants to turn their passion into a career and doesn't know where to start?
Do you know what, Kathleen, even as you're asking me that question, I'm actually getting goosebumps. And that's always my sign from the universe that, yes, this is your reason why you just have to do it. I mean, if you were to ask me 10, 12 years ago, would I be doing this? I would think not in a million. There's no way would I be. And you just never know. But the doors this has opened up for me personally, professionally, it's allowed me to live my life in a way that I love, that makes me, that also I'm helping more people now than I ever did when I was an environmental consultant. I always think books have the power to transform the world. The amount of knowledge we gain from just reading, And each person I work with, you know, often their book is on their bucket list. It's a dream that they've always wanted, and I'm helping make their dreams come true. And what person doesn't want to work in a field where you feel you're making someone else's dream come true? It's so empowering. It really is. It keeps me going. And on those bad days where I feel, oh, why am I still doing this? This is really hard, because we all have days like that.
Yeah.
I read over my testimonials of how I have helped people, and that puts the fire back in my belly again to keep me going.
Well, I will say I've seen firsthand, because you're working on this book, The Handbags, which is a fundraiser for Hopefull Handbags, helping women and their children that are getting out of domestic abuse situations. And so I've seen the stories, and I've seen you help each individual author, some people who have never written before at all, and pull things out of them and ask the questions and give them suggestions that they may not have thought about. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, yes. And I've heard the excitement, because as being a part of this as well, I've had, you know, some of them are coming to me and they're like, and Orla, this was her suggestion, and oh my gosh, it made so much sense. And so the way that you are making, what you just said, people's dreams come true, I feel like you're also helping them to realize some things they never even knew were dreams, or they never really knew that they could do. You're helping them actually do that.
In fairness, I suppose, because Aisling has been there, who's been spoiled, and Aoife, I know Aoife has been really linking in and liaising with the authors as more of a book mentor, because you know yourself, sometimes if there's too many cooks, you know, so in fairness, I have had I've been able to take more of a step back. I'm more stepping in now for the design, the layout, and I suppose the finishing touches,
right,
making sure that they're all at the certain standard, and then getting them edited. So in fairness, I suppose in this way I've had less of a hand, but I suppose I've been more in the background giving advice to Aoife and to Aisling what to look out for, how to steer the authors in a certain way, because I've worked with books for so long.
Which is the same thing, though. It's the same thing. It's coming from, but that's where you are in your position of your business. You have created that for yourself. Like you said, you wanted to be in charge. You wanted to be able to create your own navigation. And now you're able to help other people I mean, what a domino effect. And I've seen that firsthand. And I just am grateful, not only for what you do, but just even hearing your story and how you came about this. Because like I said, from being a stay-at-home mom for over 20 years, there were times I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I forget anything else. Because I didn't even start Hopefull Handbags until until my kids were almost done with school, because it was just, you get in that mindset of feeling like, whew, this is tough. But so you did mention reinventing yourself. You had mentioned that in your story. So it kind of might tail end on the last question, but what would you tell people that feel stuck or they're afraid of change?
One thing I've started to say to people, because I think fear is the thing that when you feel stuck, often you're coming from a place of fear of the unknown. What if this is worse? What if I do something and I fall flat on my face? Can I face this fear or this rejection? You know, this more proof that I'm not good enough. And I think it keeps us safe. It holds us back for so much. And I think the graveyard, sadly, is full of unfulfilled dreams. And it really is. And sometimes when I say that to people, it can be a shocking statement, but my one book I published was with the guy, he was 80 years old. He was effectively going to his grave, as he admitted, with unfulfilled dreams, because he felt stuck. It's something he would always love to publish, his little poetry book, but he felt stuck. He didn't know how to do it, who to trust, where to turn, what was involved. And it's only when he was going to write his last will and testimony to his solicitor that she told him, do this now and put me in touch with him. And I always say to people, if you feel stuck, just reach out to someone you know can help you, get you over the hurdle, get you to unstuck, somebody who has your back, who understands you. Because I had those same fears and vulnerabilities when I started writing my little children's books, and I was only publishing them for my kids. I never thought that would catapult me into getting media attention, into getting more books, into becoming a publisher. But it was a stepping stone. And if I overthought it, I would never have done anything. I wouldn't have even told anyone I published. So sometimes we just have to take a leap of faith or find somebody who will support us on taking that step.
And those of you listening, if you don't feel like you have anybody to reach out to talk about your dreams, you got two people right here. Just find us. You might just even steer you into the right direction with the right person who will come into your life, and then it'll go from there. But it's all about opening up, right? And admitting it. Like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do this, but I thought it was way out of my reach. So yeah, you got two friends right here. So before we go, I want you to tell me what sets Orla Kelly's publishing apart from other publishers.
Oh, I think it's my personal relationship with clients, because to me, yes, we all have to, you say, separate, personal from business. But to me, my business is personal. And the fact I've never forgotten how vulnerable, how insecure, unsure of myself I was on my journey, I've never forgotten that. So I understand everybody else, and I'm there to support them. I have their back. I will never let anyone publish something that will do more harm to them or do more harm to wider society or their family, because I have to sleep, put my head on the pillow at night and sleep with peace in my heart, with the reassurance that I have left no harm to anybody for my day. And that is how I live my life. And I really believe in karma, and what you put out there will come back with a ripple effect. And I always want to be honest, open, transparent, and supportive with every person I deal with. And to be honest with you, I can't help everybody, but I do feel very personally invested in all of my clients, knowing that they are supported every step of the way, and I have their back. And I think that's what I like to feel makes me feel different.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. So thank you very much for being here today. And I want to tell everybody, you can find out more and also how to reach Orla if you go to hopefullhandbags.org. Now that's hopeful with 2 L's, because that's full of hope. Remember that? And go to the handbags tag, click on her picture or her name, and it will bring you to her bio. And it will have every way that you can get in touch with Orla to ask questions and reach out. So thank you again so much for being here, Orla. And we look forward to, all of you need to purchase the book and read these stories. Orla's is so inspirational. We have 12 women who have written stories all about different types of things. So this is going to resonate with everybody, will resonate with something. So thank you very much again, Orla, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Kathleen. Bye. Thank you.